rights being rights being infringed. It's about the state making a mistake. Which,
Okay.
They will have their order.
Yeah.
And
but there are no questions.
No questions.
Because in the afternoon we have them again.
Yes, and I will announce, and they will raise their hand, and they will report at their seat.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Time. Time. We are going to start again.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next session with NGOs is about to start. Please take your seat. Welcome back to the session between ROC and NGOs. This session is 80 minutes. We will ask NGOs to make presentations. You have 3 or 6 minutes to make the presentations, and 1 minute and 3 minutes before your time is up, we will remind you. Later on, the MCs will call the name of the NGOs, and we ask the representative to remain seated. When it's your time to make the presentations, please raise your hand, and our staff will hand you the microphone and the pointer. You can remain at your seat when you make the presentations. Again, simultaneous interpreting is provided throughout the session. In order for interpreters to hear you clearly, we request you to pay attention to your speed. Please use reasonable speed to speak. And Professor Jakob, you have the floor.
Okay. This is apparently an important session. Let me, at least for those who are not aware of it, that we have received extensive information from a wide variety of NGOs. The interesting part of that experience is what we have in other countries as well, that there are quite a number of existing NGOs who started to include in their activities children's rights. They didn't start as a children's rights organization, but they were aware of the importance of children's rights, and they included it in their activities. So we very much appreciate all that input from the NGOs, and we will listen to the presentations this morning, but we will have a full discussion with questions and answers in the afternoon. So I don't know what the order of the presentations is, but I leave that to the person who is fully in charge of that part of this happening.
Thank you. 好，接下来我们进行报告。
First, Chinese Taipei Flying Disc Association. We will hand you the microphone. Thank you. Please start. Hi, I'm from Chinese Taipei Flying Disc Association. We care about all kinds of sports. Our topic today is transgender athletes. Which groups of the games that they join could affect female athletes? Starting from the 2023 high school national sports, transgender athletes can join the games. However, in foreign countries, transgender athletes, without the removal of their organs, say if he was a male before and join a females groups games and broke many records, won a lot of champions, and many female athletes were very discouraged by that. If that's the case, I think one of the athletes said that, then what's the point of having female athletes? Is it fair for female athletes? Female athletes may be marginalized. And this reality does affect the future career of female athletes. In the sports dedicated class in schools, there will be no more female students because it is very unfair. And in a volleyball game, a transgender athlete hurt, during the game, hurt another female athlete. Her neck, her eyes were all broken. So that's a very recent case. I would like to end here. Thank you. Hello. I want to talk about the health of children. I am a third-year student in senior high school. I want the government can save us because vapor now is prevalent. Many students in high school, in junior high school, start to vape. They smoke the vape. You can smell the smell, and we don't want to be a snitch, and usually we don't tell the teachers. And due to school rules, teachers are not allowed to check students' belongings. And it's really easy to sell and buy. You can use Shopee, an e-commerce website, to buy vapors very easily. So we want the government to do something about it in order to protect our health. Thank you. Okay?
Now, ROC Association of HIV, AIDS, and Child Care, Taiwan Association of Gender, Sexuality, Rights Protection. Please raise your hand. You have a microphone, please.
I want to focus on sexuality health of children. Sexually transmitted diseases among adolescents remain on the rise. For example, gonorrhea cases double within 3 years. We find several key problems. The statistics of syphilis and gonorrhea are not analyzed by transmission category, so it's impossible to make effective prevention strategy for high-risk groups. Second, chlamydia, which affects young people, especially girls, and can lead to infertility, is not in the statistics. Third, health education is not fully implemented. 72% of health education courses were taught by teachers without professional training. We suggest that STD statistics should be analyzed by transmission category and include chlamydia. Train more professional teachers and build up a system of itinerant teachers qualified in health sexuality education to serve for different schools. Provide sufficient scientific-based, age-appropriate knowledge by good sexuality education textbooks. Okay.
The second issue is terminology definition. The government uses the same terminology to translate and indicate quite different concepts that cause confusion and controversy. For example, 性别 means sex on the passport and the ID card. However, it becomes gender in another document. The term 多元性别 sometimes means gender diversity and sometimes means LGBT. It's confusing. And the term 平等 sorry. The term 平等 sometimes means equity, and in another law, it means equality. Actually, the CRC has pointed out this problem and gives the government some suggestions. However, the government doesn't want to correct mistakes and simply have a list of translation. Our suggestion is that the government should have public meetings to discuss the definitions and translations and clearly define the terminology in all legislations or documents. And the government should make sure that all the terminology in the legislations or documents are consistent. Thank you very much.
接下来我们邀请第3个报告单位。
Next, Taiwan NGOs for CRC. RC members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am from Children's Welfare Foundation League, and my colleague from ACPEC Taiwan will together make the presentation. Our report is written by 13 NGOs, and I will talk about general principles and general population of children and children with a special need. First of all, general principles. There's an issue regarding whether or not there should be a central dedicated agency for children's rights so that it can help coordinate the work. I think NHRC has some challenges. I will not talk about the issues or the details, but we propose to have a dedicated children's institution. And about to listen and to respond to children's opinions. We observe that in the judicial processes or some of the children representatives find it challenging to be heard because the environment is friendly to them. So on campus, in family, in schools, adults need to use diversified ways and friendly ways to listen to the children and give feedback to them. And the next thing is about eliminate discrimination. Many children have experience of discrimination. And especially the children who enjoy some social benefits. We want the government to eliminate such negative impression brought about by social welfares, and there requires to be operational guidelines, and there should be a third-party complaint mechanism for schools. The next thing is corporate punishments. Children are subject to corporate punishment quite commonly in daycare, in kindergarten, in placement institutions. It's very quite common. We suggest that the government should create legislation to ban all kinds of corporate punishments. As for sexual health and birth, education, health, there's a increasing percentage of children who have sex, and there is a gap between teenage girls who are pregnant in rural areas and in urban areas. So there should be more trained teachers in terms of sex education. And the mental and physical health is a priority. We need to add a standard to air pollution, to create indoor air pollution monitoring devices on school. And there should be measures to help children understand their emotions, regulate their emotions, and to reduce suicide rate. And we need more measures to prevent children from sexual exploitation. OPSC should be domesticated as early as possible, and there should be a prevention act to prevent online grooming. There should be a dedicated agency for sexual exploitation of children, and help teachers and other trainers to have more understanding on how to deal with self-generated sexual images by children. And for children who have witnessed violence. We think social workers need to evaluate the safety and the needs of witness children and to help them find proper resources. Judicial personnel should be more sensitive to witness children, especially when they address custody cases. And children who are in placement should be protected. We should help them return home, help them become independent, recover from trauma in all kinds of decision making. Children's thoughts and opinions need to be included in order to mitigate the harm brought about by a placement or a transfer. Second, to integrate kinship care and family foster family. And government should provide more supportive services for families who are willing to provide this kind of services. And improve the education quality for children who have special needs. For example, there's a gap between urban and rural areas in terms of the quality of teachers. And there should be a professional team that can be friendly to children. Second, for at-risk children, the government needs to review the judicial system from the perspective of the children and work with the NPO, the society, to prevent children from using drugs and improve parenting education as well. This concludes the presentation of our alliance. Thank you.
Next, Taiwan Parents Protect Women and Children Association, please. Distinguished members of the IRC, distinguished guests, good morning. What I would like to say is, regrettably, the Implementation Act of the CRC has been in force for 8 years in Taiwan. However, in public libraries, there are many books which are not suitable for children to read. And there's no restricted access to those books. As a result, the rights of children have been violated. So I have a few recommendations. First, we support freedom of speech in a democracy, but when it comes to the age rating for publications, for print works, we must not loosen the regulations. In addition, in a public library, we must make sure that certain content of books may not be suitable to be displayed in the public area for everyone to access and read. In addition, maybe we need to have a dedicated area for certain books that have unsuitable content for children. In fact, I have a few examples that I can show you, but because we have children in this room, so I will not show them in public, but I will present to you later. Thank you.
Next, number 5, Taiwan Love Children Association. Number 5, Taiwan Love Children Association. Dear IRC members and dear friends, this is our presentation. First of all, family support. First, family supports. What's the best time for high school students to go to school in order to ensure the best interest of them? Well, we found that in 2021 Public Policy Online Participation Platform, 2 groups conducted a survey on the adjustment of school hours to 9:30 in the morning to 5 p.m. So Taiwan Youth for Democracy Association and National Alliance of Parent Groups conducted these 2 surveys. It seems that both groups want to protect children's rights, but parents tend to think that CRC is used as a challenge, to challenge adults' authority. So we need to think about whether or not adults are really listening to children. Children, in fact, are trying to express their pressure when they become teenagers. But of course, parents also have pressure when they have teenage children in family. So parenting really need to change. Parents need to be understood, need to be guided. So we suggest that teenage stage is a very important developmental stage. We should encourage teenagers to develop their own life. They should participate, and there should be empowerment classes for the parents to help them better communicate with their children. The government can ask private organizations to organize such training and encourage companies to provide such training to their employees. Second, I want to talk about bilingual policy. On the 5th slide, it shows that we organize online parenting training, and it has received really great feedback. Okay, slide 6. Currently, students do not have enough Chinese proficiency. Well, the 2019 curriculum emphasizes diversity and literacy, but the exam questions are very long. It is difficult to understand the questions. At this stage, if we want the students to be bilingual, if we don't have supplemental measures, they won't be able to learn Chinese or foreign language well. So we should respect their right to development and encourage them to nourish their talent and interest. So we suggest that education really requires long-term planning. Without supplementary measures, any policy shouldn't be just launched. So we think creating a home environment is the best way for children to learn their mother tongue. And we will never give up any children, so we'll never give up. Thank you very much.
Next, NAPPA, National Alliance of Presidents of Parents Associations, please. So we will have 6 minutes because another alliance is going to give us one of their minutes. So we are going to have 4 minutes focusing on 2 subjects. The first one is inadequate promotion of the basic ideas of CRC has resulted in a lot of corporal punishment in schools. And, for example, there are many news reports about corporal punishment in schools where the students have been criticized, the parents have been criticized, while the teacher has been praised for being a quality teacher. And also, there are many parents who disregard their children's safety by riding a scooter with 2 kids on the scooter. So it seems that we don't have enough promotion of the protection of children's rights. As a result, many often we find the life of our children is threatened. For example, over 8,000 children die each year in car accidents. And it seems that many schools are not so attentive to the training of CRC. For example, on some government website, it shows that over 90% of the teachers have attended such training on CRC. But if you talk to those teachers, it seems that only 50% of them know anything about CRC. In other words, there's very low competence among school teachers about CRC. Not to mention, there are many regulations at the local government level that are in violation of the CRC. For example, there are some mainland Chinese students coming to Taiwan, and they are not allowed to attend local schools as transient students. And I think this is definitely a discrimination against those students, and again, a violation of the CRC. I think the government needs to amend relevant laws to stay in compliance with the CRC. Thank you.
各位委员，大家好，我是全国家长会长联盟理事长。
So, good morning. I'm Huang Zhenming, speaking on behalf of the MAPPA. I will focus my talk on e-vapor. I think the government has been negligent as to the protection of our children's health. According to the Health Promotion Administration's statistics, in fact, 230,000 middle school students and 560,000 high school students have been using so-called emerging tobacco products. And here you can see the poster. One school teacher asked her students to hand out all the e-vapors they have. And you can see there are lots of them. And many of students actually share such tobacco products. We know how such products can damage and harm the health of our young people. For example, some people may think that e-vapors are not cigarettes. However, they can result in lifelong damage in the body and the brain. I believe that there are many organizations, civil rights organizations, have been calling upon the government to have a complete ban on such products. Yet, over the past 15.5 years, the Tobacco Hazards Prevention Act has never been amended. Therefore, we call upon the government to impose a ban on all emerging nicotine and tobacco products. And of course, the legislative yuan must amend the Tobacco Hazards Prevention Act as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 7, CRC Watch. Also, just to remind you that when you speak, please pay attention to your speed. Please use reasonable speed so that simultaneous interpreting can be provided. Thank you. Dear RC members, hello. Before I start, I want to say that this is probably the only time for NGOs to talk to IRC, to interact with IRC. And it is a pity that in following sessions, during the government sessions, NGOs need to go to a different room. But in the future, we hope that we can stay in the government session so that we can also share our ideas. Okay, I will start my presentation now. Can you go back to the previous slide? Okay. On the legal dimension, I think if the law is not right, then everything that follows it will be wrong. In 57 paragraph of the concluding observations, it is suggested that corporate punishments in home and in public school, in private school should be banned. But in our civil codes, paragraph 1085, it is stipulated that there is disciplinary authority. I think this should be removed. And it seems that parents think that they can hit the buttocks or some areas of children's body as a way to exercise their disciplinary authority. This is an outdated piece of legislation. Now, with the really low birth rates, we need to eliminate any causes that may harm children. And 30% of the causes of death for children can be prevented, in fact. So in 2019, the Children and Youth Act was amended. So the COD analysis, cause of death analysis, started. But it seems that it's still in a pilot program. Even the capital city, Taipei City, has not joined this program. If people don't implement the law is nothing. COD analysis should cover not only children who are under 6-year-olds, but it should cover children who die in traffic accidents. So we also see there's an increasing number of children who commit suicide. Second, on administrative aspect or dimension, yes, the increase for children is seen year by year, but it's imbalanced. Most of it is put on education. The budget should also be allocated on welfare, protection, health, and development. However, these segments only take 25% of the budget. And there isn't a sufficient system to support caregivers for children. So it really takes more resources for caregivers, especially the caregivers for children who have special needs. They need a better support network, which we don't have right now. And also when a child is placed, he or she still needs to go to school to study. But it seems that it's very problematic and very challenging. Sometimes NGOs need to do a lot just to make it possible for a placed child to be admitted in a school. It seems that the most burden is being borne by the NGOs. This is unreasonable. And after the first state report of CRC, the government has not yet been able to propose the first children-based budget. We don't have a lot of 5 years. We need more resources for children. Next, on the first line dimension, yes, CRC is being promoted. But is it really useful? Do people who work on children issues understand CRC? Because if they do, there wouldn't be so many cases of sexual abuse or sexual harassment in school or within home. So there are different laws in Taiwan regarding education and regarding preschool teachers. There are so many laws. However, after an incident happened, is it being dealt in a fair manner, especially when something happened on campus? It's very difficult for children to file a complaint. And many of the decision makers are teachers. So where's the rights of the children? If the perpetrator and the people who address the complaints are the same people, it does not guarantee the rights of the children. 5 years have passed, but children's rights in Taiwan are still in their infant stage. Next week, we're going to vote on the voting rights of children who reach 18 years old. Does that mean that children have to wait until they are 18 years old before all of their rights can be protected? Children's committees or meetings regarding children's affairs, do they really expect the opinions of children? I think there's a lot of work to be done. Thank you.
Next, Governance Watch. Please. The next 6 minutes will be shared by Governance Watch, Taiwan Alliance to End the Death Penalty, and Taiwan Education Association. First of all, in response to the question the IRC raised to the NHRC, well, I think many people, including children, are not familiar with the NHRC. We know that the NHRC commissioners are also members of the Control Yuan. It seems that these commissioners are more interested in fulfilling their duties as members of the Control Yuan rather than as defenders of human rights. Even though the NHRC does not yet have the legal basis for their exercise of power, but there are many things they can do. It's been 2 years since their establishment. The Commission still does not have a systematic approach to carry out their work. And I think that is why the NHRC is not so visible to members of the society. Next, we would like to raise a few issues in relation to statistics in the child justice area. The statistics on criminal offenses by young people published by the government only cover the age group of 12 to 24. So it's difficult to understand the full picture of child offenders under the age of 18. Also, although the age of criminal responsibility in Taiwan is 14, juvenile offenders between the age of 12 and 14 may still be incarcerated. And even though offenders under the age of 18 are not legally punishable by death or life imprisonment, there are still cases where young offenders have been sentenced to 30 years in prison. I think this is a violation of the CRC. This also constitutes cruel and degrading treatment. There is also much mistreatment in juvenile correctional facilities, such as the types of restraints and timing of imposition that do not meet international human rights standards and are often used as punishment. It's also difficult to distinguish between disciplinary action and protective action or punishment measures. And according to government statistics, 8 to 12% of the child offenders in the 4 juvenile correctional facilities are children with impairments. We suspect this number, there may be some underestimation, and we believe now the government is coming up with new regulation for child justice, and we urge you to pay close attention to the issue of juvenile justice. I speak on behalf of the Taiwan Alliance to End the Death Penalty. Well, the children of those sentenced to imprisonment or the death penalty are the invisible victims in the system. These children are forced to separate from their parents. So this is a violation of their best interest. Taiwan's criminal system does not pay attention to the protection of such children. And we are pleased that in the list of issues, the reviewers have pointed out this problem, and we urge the Taiwan government to take necessary measures for example, through revised sentencing guidance to take into account of the interest of the children of those sentenced to imprisonment or the death penalty. And we must respect children's right to be heard. That means we need to have a friendly environment to encourage children to speak up. That also means that the personnel in the justice system must be trained to be sensitive to the needs of children. Thirdly, Taiwan still has death penalty, so the court should pay close attention to people with minor children if they may be sentenced to imprisonment or the death penalty. And counseling services should be provided for those involved in these cases. Thank you. We are concerned about the situation of children with disabilities in education. For example, the government has not implemented the policy of inclusive education. The human rights model of disability has not been upheld. Rather, the biomedical model is still used in practice. As a result, many children with impairments, especially hidden impairments, are not recognized as such. There are not sufficient resources to help children with disabilities either. For instance, even for children with very severe disabilities, their need for assistance on campus sometimes may not be fully met. So we hope you can urge the government to be more mindful of the human rights model of disability and investing more resources in the services children with disabilities need so that inclusive education can be realized. Thank you.
我们请编号第9。
Thank you. Number 9. League for Persons with Disabilities.
General Secretary Xing Ping Hong from the League for Persons with Disability. 我想在这样的场合
I think at this time, it is the most appropriate for a child with disabilities to speak their mind. So Chen Yuening here, the child we've been helping, will speak her mind. Hello, I am 12 years old. I'm in the 6th grade. Thank you very much for listening to my 5 problems regarding my life. First, about homework. We can use the computer to type our composition, but all the other homework have to be submitted with pens and paper. Sometimes, if I don't have enough time, I need to wake up really early to finish the homework. Second, on the checking of our homework. Teachers praise me for what I do with my homework, but still it takes too much time to listen to the praise. I want to have more time to go out and play. Problem number 3, sometimes I don't write clearly enough, and other students complain that they cannot read my handwriting and therefore give me really bad grades in the quiz. Fourth, bigger exams. I can use computer to type in my answers in exams, but in many other cases, I need to use papers to write my answers. IEP is provided on some of the subjects, such as math subjects. I can go to other classroom. I have longer time to finish, but when I, for example, take the Chinese examination, I don't get to get this extended time and therefore can finish the exam. And the fifth is that some other teachers don't understand what I cannot write well. So I hope a government's IEP related policy can be truly implemented so that substitute teachers can also understand what the students I'm like. And some students with disabilities look just like other students, but what we have is learning difficulties, and people may think that, oh, we don't input enough time to practice. And I don't have the certificate for persons with disabilities, but I am recognized as a student with learning disabilities. But since I don't have that certificate, I cannot use computer to take some exams. Thank you.
Next, Guardian National Association Children Family. Thank you. Thank you for coming to visit us in Formosa, Taiwan. We are Guardian National Association Children and Family, and we have noticed discrimination against children by the government. So I would like to bring to your attention. First of all, I believe the selection of the children and youth representatives is not fair, nor is it friendly to children. Here you can see 95% of local governments have age limits. And also, many local governments do not have guaranteed quota for children with special needs. In practice, on the left-hand side, over 50% of children may be present in the selection committee. However, in practice, that is not the case because children do not have the time to attend such selection meetings. In addition, the appointment letter will not be awarded to children representatives until the term is completed. Also, over 60% of local governments treat such children's representatives as volunteers, asking them to receive sufficient number of hours before they can get the certificate. Moreover, I think we can look at children in care and how difficult it is for them to return home. According to many reports, you can see the proportion of children in foster care returning to home is very low. Because they cannot return home, we do see the problem of disrupted placements. But this problem has been overlooked by government for a long time. And on the left-hand side, you can see that it seems that in the state report, only 40% of the children and youth in care or in placement have to transfer to different placement institutions. But in reality, it's over 60%. Another issue is about the inspection and evaluation of public and privately managed public facilities. And here you can see this based on the report submitted by the government. The blue bars represent the state-run public institutions, and the purple bars represent the state-managed, state-established but managed by private operators institutions. You can see they have 100% A rating in the evaluation process. But for the private institutions, basically the A rating is way lower. I hope that the government will simply write fancy reports. A more comprehensive evaluation mechanism must be set up. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 11, Taiwan Residential Child Care Alliance. we would like to provide some supplemental response regarding LOI. First of all, on the response of the government 6.3, we want to say that in Taiwan, the need for placement is very complicated. Considering that complexity and considering the capacity, I think we need to take into consideration children's option in choosing placements. It seems that smaller institutions are preferred, but even in those organizations, military-like education sometimes is still used. And for a larger placement organizations, it is possible to reach individualized care. So many placement organizations now are like small group homes. And to respond, you care about the role of group homes. Well, in fact, the position of group home service still need to be clarified. Should it be primarily used for special needs children, or can it be an alternative placement option for children in general? It requires more discussions. And even for group homes which are supported by the policy, they still suffer from lack of resources. Also, to respond to 6.4, we think the governments need to lay down a clear schedule for deinstitutionalization. But before we reach deinstitutionalization, placement organizations still exist. It still take most of the children who need placements. In order to ensure that children receive quality care in institutional settings, it is important to assess the caregiving capacity. As I mentioned earlier, the ratio between the caregivers and those who are cared for. The funding is also important. And the caregivers' quality of life is very important, because with the current salaries that they get, it's really difficult to hire quality people. Quality people can deliver quality care. So funding, professional capacity, care models, support systems are all very important before we reach deinstitutionalization.
Next, number 12, Mothers Shield Alliance for the Protection of Families and Children in Taiwan, please. According to Article 5 of the CRC, the convention should help solve problems rather than encourage or stimulate conflicts between children and their parents. Therefore, we believe, aside from upholding the rights of the child, we should teach children to fulfill their obligations and duties while they enjoy the rights. And as parents, they should learn to listen, support, accompany, and encourage their children. In terms of health, according to the Health Promotion Administration survey in 2021, 25% of high school students once seriously considered committing suicide. Many of these young people have issues getting along with their family members. And of course, addiction to the internet is another serious problem. In terms of sexuality education, I don't think we are doing a good job in schools. The sexuality education in school focuses on the use of condom. As a result, we see more instances of STD, and there's also more pregnancy among teenage girls, as well as induced abortions. Therefore, I believe the family is the key factor in teenage suicide, poor health, mental health, physical health. So the school system should provide more support for the family, and there should be greater emphasis on family education. On the family front, We believe family education should be incorporated into different levels of school, especially in the middle school level, so that children know the value of marriage and family. In addition, the Family Education Act should be amended so that at least 4 hours of training on family education for each school year must be implemented. Even in colleges, family education should be a required course. On campus, we recommend that there should be greater efforts to prevent suicide, and there should be better referral system for medical resources for our young people. As for the curriculum design, more experts on child development should be included, and science should be the basis on which to design such curriculum. On the use of the internet, cybersecurity for our young people must be the priority of our government. It should not be the onus should not be on the parents and the private sector. For example, handbooks, manuals can be provided for parents so that they know how they can reach agreement with their teenage children as to the use of the internet. And of course, some protective programs and software should be used as well. Right now, I think there are some problems in our government because we have too many different agencies working in silos. Therefore, we believe a family impact assessment should be carried out. In the central government, there should be a dedicated agency to promote family education so that family can fulfill its role in upholding the rights of the child. This is in keeping with the spirit of the CRC, that is the best interest of the child. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 13, Taiwan Women and Children's Rights Association. Hello. I am Liang Meihui. In the first international review, well, in the 30 point of your first concluding observation said that government need to recognize the high rate of suicide, and the government need to evaluate and address the causes of such attempts in order to reduce suicide rate. However, it's been 5 years. In this specific documents, in the second stage reports, if we look at the unnatural death of children, if you look at page 41, in 2019-2020, among 100,000 students, 52 children decided to take their own lives. And after the first day reports, we started to discuss action plans. So I received some information by 2018 or July. And in a meeting, the causes and analysis were all absent when it comes to death of children. So in these reports, I don't see really detailed explanation on the stats or the cause or the analysis of cause of suicide. So I think schools and parents and teachers need to help children to have better EQs, and internet content really needs to be classified. I think around the world it is common that children can access all kinds of content which is not good for their mental health or physical health online. In this kind of content, they need to learn how to –, monitor and control their emotions, when they have emotional outbursts or physical conflicts with others in schools, they may become even more uncontrollable. So the government need to help both the parents and the teenagers in terms of how to cultivate better interpersonal relationships. And next, I want to talk about a family education center, which is not very useful in providing family education. We don't see the indicators or action plans or any of the government documents. Without such information, how can local government operate such centers? I think 3 of you were in the previous review and provide really good suggestions to the government, but we don't think those suggestions are being implemented. So we want a clearer action plan, because children now don't have their right to education or life protected.
Next, Profemana, Taiwan.
Taiwan reporting. I use English. The current mutual consent divorce procedure doesn't have a mechanism to protect the best interests of the children or their views to be heard and taken into consideration. In year 2019, Taiwan's divorce rate was the 5th highest in the world. Over the last 2 decades, 2.85 million couples got married, but 1.13 million of couples got divorced, and the relative divorce rate was 40%. On average, 57,000 couples got divorced each year over the last 2 decades, and that has resulted in a drastic increase in the number of divorced population from 865,000 in year 2002 to 1.9 million in year 2021. And about 1.26 million of minors witnesses the divorce of their parents. And about 15% of the whole population experience divorce or parental divorce. Divorce is the key factor causing the rising single-parent and dysfunctional families and many juvenile and social delinquencies that are facing today. And about 40% of single parents are living on social welfare. About 85% of divorce cases are conducted through mutual consent, and the rest of 15% through lawsuit or mediation provided by the court. The procedure of mutual consent divorce is that both parties sign their divorce agreement and ask for 2 witnesses to sign and have the agreement registered at their local household registration office, and the divorce is done and become effective immediately. In general, it takes about 10 minutes to finish the process. However, the problems of mutual consent divorce are that there's no mechanism to ensure whether the rights and responsibilities of both parties are fair and equal, and the best interests of their children are protected. Proposed solution: a pre-divorce buffer and support mechanism, such as a certain period of separation or waiting period, or counseling for those with minor children, should be set up in order to protect the best interests of the children. For example, for separation, many countries require divorcing couples to be separated from several months to several years, such as Germany, Austria, France, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Yeah, thank you.
谢谢。接下来我们请编号15号。
Thank you. Number 15, National Alliance of Parents Organization. ROC members, ladies and gentlemen, this is National Alliance of Parents Organization. I think we've provided a Word file, right? If it is not shown, I'm going to just speak about it. My report is focused on 2 parts. First, COVID-19, how it impacted high school students and junior high school students. Their learning performance decreases. We use the national exams as in our analysis. For junior high school students, if we compare the exam results from 2020 and 2021 and 2022, there are an increase of C-level performance. So it seems that the performance Mandarin Chinese doesn't have a big change, but when it comes to math performance increases. So suspension of classes during COVID-19 doesn't have a big impact on general learning. However, for high school students, especially the senior students, there are more students who fall below level 6, so their performance gets worse. So the percentage under level 6 grew from 32% to 55%. And in 2022, there are 2 math subjects, Math A and Math B. Math B is easier, but again, 42% of students are below level 6 performance. So COVID-19 had some impact on math performance for senior high school students. The second part of my presentation is the lack of substitute teachers, especially in rural areas. A month ago, a candidate for Taipei mayor said that the percentage of substitute teachers for elementary and junior high school students is 14%. I think the number is worse in rural areas. In Pingdong County, which is a southern county, there are 5 to 8 schools which could not have hired enough substitute teachers. That greatly impacts the right to education for children. So we have 2 suggestions. First of all, after students return to physical class, there should be special classes to enhance their performance. And the examination results during COVID-19 should be used as to how such makeup classes are to be designed. Second, again, as I say, lack of substitute teachers is a big problem for rural areas. So the government need to follow up with it and change policy in order to address this.
接下来我们请编号16社团法人国际儿少人权促进会进行报告。
各位先进，大家好。以下是国际儿少人权促进会发表报告。我们发现近年我国儿少性侵害案件居高不下，且逐年增加，违反了儿少生存发展权。下一页。根据卫福部统计，我国性侵害案件2019年至2020年1年中增加超过1000件的性侵害案件，以12岁到未满18岁之青少年被害者人数最多，超过被害者总人数的50%。18岁以下儿少的受害者占总人数的65%。此外，嫌疑人人数最多的年龄阶段为12至未满18岁，占26%。也就是说，每4名性侵害案件嫌疑人中，就有1名是12至未满18岁的青少年。下一页。而我国性别主流化政策超过20年，性别平等教育实行超过15年，性侵害案件人数却居高不下，且逐年增加。可见。
However, we have been seeing a lot, an increase in the case of sexual abuse among children and youth. So despite the fact that we have gender equality education, we are not able to protect our children and youth. Not to mention there's a lot of pornographic information on the internet and the mass media. As a result, many children are exposed to inadequate content on the online. So we recommend that the Executive Yuan should review the shortcomings in the existing laws and regulations. Solutions must be proposed to unite forces and resources of all government agencies. And of course, children should be told how to protect themselves by drawing the so-called the boundaries properly. And such education must be made available to all children and youth. In addition, I-Wing as a mechanism to screen the content online should be strengthened. And we should have content labeling and rating system to help parents and children to tell if the content is adequate. So we are pleased that we have two representatives from children and youth groups, and one of them said that they hope that all their family members and classmates and teachers can be more familiar with the CRC so that they can listen to her, listen to what she has to say. But I think the public sector has to first start taking action to familiarize themselves with the CRC so that the regulations and policies can protect the rights of the child. We have another representative who is a high school student. And we hope that there will be representatives from vocational high schools to be part of the youth and children representative bodies. Thank you.
谢谢报告。
To remind you that please use your time wisely because we've gone over our time for the morning. Next, number 17, Fushen Food Bank Association. Hi, everyone. There will be two presenters. One of them is a child. I am the president of this association. We really care about the impact of the media on children. For example, the National Public Television, in one of their programs, invite people who are involved in BDSM who promote open relationships. They paint a very positive hue on open relationships, and they spread wrong information about STD. They hurt children's right to education. Public television also has a program for gay couple or lesbian couples. They are not neutral because they support the idea of surrogates and mothers, so they didn't uphold the principle to stay impartial. Surrogate mother is a very controversial issue. It hurts the health of surrogates. It exploits women, and it doesn't consider the negative impact on such a practice. As for our suggestions, we think PTS, public television, should remove these videos from online, and NCC need to give penalty to PTS, and PTS need to create a monitoring mechanism to ensure that the content they play can protect a right to children, and controversial programs need to invite both positive and opposition opinions, and PTS need to consider replace the producers of that program, and all the future producers need to have special training on right to health of children. Hello, I am a child representative from Fushan Food Bank. If the government is willing to input resources, I think resources need to be put on developing quality time within the family so that children feel that they are supported, they are brave, they will be willing to care for themselves. And in schools, we want to take classes that teach us how to cherish life, how to love, how to select what responsibilities we need to bear. I think this can reduce on-campus bullying. I think a government should help cultivate citizens who are brave and who are of integrity. And the government need to classify the content of the internet. We hope that the schools can help us, who are still growing, to help us become braver, to have better moral values, so that we can be warm, so that we have the capacity to care for others and reduce the possibility of bullying others.
Thank you. Next, Taiwan Fund for Children and Families.
唐先进，大家好，财团法人台湾儿童暨家庭扶助。
Hi, we have 9 responses on COD analysis. The current COD is performed on children who are under 6. It is used to prevent future death. However, the newborn mortality rate is still very high, and the suicide rate among children who are between 12 and 17 is on the rise too. So we suggest that the COD analysis should cover children who are between 0 to 18 years old. In addition to legislation, there should be a COD review system. Issue number 2, mental health of children. There's a higher suicide rate among children, but we don't have enough statistical data. So we think there should be more budget in developing health policy. And the usage rate of current resources is quite low, especially used by children. There should be a review mechanism to see why children don't use government resources, and their opinions should be included. Children's autonomy on medical decisions should be guaranteed, especially by law. Issue number 3, digital sexual violence. Currently, this issue is being managed by so many different agencies. There isn't a dedicated agency. Pieces of legislation are here and there. There isn't a comprehensive law. So we suggest that there should be a specific scope and definition for this issue and implement protective policies for victims. Next, improper corporal punishment by teachers. Corporal punishment is also on the rise. The government needs to review this reality and adjust their strategy. Teachers who give corporate punishment should be punished. And there should be a review on the reporting and actual penalties for teachers. And it seems that most of the children don't talk about it until they graduate. So students should learn more about their rights, and there should be a better complement mechanism. Issue number 5, alternative care. And again, policies are scattered around among different agencies. The governments need to integrate these policies. There should be an indicator to examine the quality of placement. There isn't a good support system for kinship placement. As for commissioned placement, there isn't a mechanism to provide counseling for children so that they can return home after the placement. There's lack of stats, lack of training, and lack of complaint mechanism. Number 6, teenage pregnancy. The government doesn't have enough data. data on teenage who become pregnant, who go over maternity examination, or who actually give birth. And 25% or 30% of teenage pregnant students decided to drop off from school. There is an effective intervention. Issue number 7, resources in schools. There aren't enough resources in remote areas. So there should be more statistical data to review whether or not resources are lacking in some specific areas. But we do see that there is a widening digital gap between urban and rural areas. There is a gap of access to information which impact the learning performance. So the government need to accumulate more data and include digital literacy in the curriculum so that children have better capability to access information. Issue number 6, sexual abuse. Children victims account for a higher and higher percentage of overall victims. So national sexual abuse data of children should be made public, and there should be a way to review the effectiveness of preventive measures. Some complaints mechanisms are not used enough, so it needs to be reviewed as to why. Children don't usually initiate the use of such mechanism. So again, this has to be reviewed.
进行报告。
Kaohsiung City Parents Association. Good morning. The Ministry of Education has kept a list of trainers of gender equality. However, these teachers and trainers actually present ideas that are in violation of the CRC. For example, some of them advocate the sexual liberation, and some of them do not prohibit young people from using drugs. And many of them also support open sexual relationship, BDSM, as well as open sexual liberation. So it seems that such trainers, seen as qualified trainers of gender equality, may actually do more harm than good for our children. So we believe when it comes to health education, effective education, as well as sexuality education, science should be at front and center in the qualification of teachers. And when selecting such so-called teachers of gender equality, there should be very clear criteria. Thank you. And we have child representatives who would like to speak up. Good morning. I'm a child representative of the association. We at school learn a lot about human rights education and how to respect others. But I chose not to speak out when I was exposed to some weird and absurd comments made in those classes. For example, some young people from Taiwan rushed to Cambodia and became victims to human trafficking. So in order to comply with the CRC in upholding the rights of children to be free from violence, the government should set up more comprehensive social safety net. That means each and every one of us must be a guardian to protect our children. So character education should be a part of our school education so that children and young people can learn how to identify threats and danger. They know how to tell right from wrong. And in middle school, because there are entrance examinations coming, very often the teacher would rush through their instructions. However, such gender equality courses are still included. So we hope that if we want to have children spend less time in school, then I hope certain courses can be elective for middle school students, and then we get to choose if we want to learn more about certain theoretical knowledge. Thank you.
Number 21, Action Alliance on Basic Education. Hello, everyone. I think the National Alliance of President of Parents Association talk about novel cigarettes or vaping or novel nicotine products. We think the law has to be amended. So I just want to echo that. So moving on to my point here, the chaos from the process of reporting learning portfolio associated with 2019 course guideline. I think one of the chaos is that there's a double track of examination and learning portfolio. For the students, it means that there are two examinations. Students could have explored their interests, but now it seems they have to put a lot of internship activities on their learning portfolio in order to apply for better schools. It's a huge competition, especially on how well off the families are. So we think there is the M-shape reality among students' performance because some students don't receive good enough training, counseling from their teachers. They face a lot of pressure. Sometimes they just give up. So I think it is very important to enhance academic counseling teams to help students to prepare their learning portfolios, explain to students how a learning portfolio can be created, and help them understand what their interests are. We think that starting from elementary schools and continuing to middle schools is very important for students to learn what they like.
Next, Aglo Taiwan. Good morning. On behalf of Aglo Taiwan, I would like to talk about the sexually transmitted disease among young people. During the past 3 years, young people aged between 10 to 19, we see a 6-fold increase in gonorrhea cases. The only exception is the HIV infections. This is because of the promotion of education awareness raising and PREP programs. And for people aged between 15 to 24, last year, 245 of them infected HIV, and over 2,000 contracted gonorrhea. So these are very serious threats to the health of our young people. Also, over 80% of such STD infections occur to young men, especially HIV infections. 98% of them occur to males. And also, male-to-male unsafe sex is the greatest contributor to such infections. So what is going on with our teenage boys? I think it's because there's a lot of information on the internet, social media, dating apps, prompting them to engage in unsafe sex. For example, the so-called multiple persons in sex. As a result, the use of drugs, the cases of sexual abuse have been on the rise. We hope more stringent control and restrictions can be put in place. As for gonorrhea, we know that if untreated, women may become infertile. And there is also drug-resistant gonorrhea issue. Therefore, more screening, sexuality education are in order. Every year, I think we should have a report on the STDs among young people, disaggregated based on gender, age, and means of transmission. In addition, in textbooks, correct knowledge should be instilled. Condoms are not the panacea that can cure all sexually transmitted diseases. Not having sex is the ultimate way to avoid contracting such disease.
Next, Loving and Protecting Minors Association.
New Taipei City Loving and Protecting Minors Association. Statement. Taiwanese consider drug abuse as one of the most serious social issues. Many criminal acts are related to drug abuse. Compared to adults, children and juveniles are harmed even more by drug abuse, because of human brains continue to develop until the age of 25. So for those under the age of 25, drug abuse can cause permanent damages to their brains. According to statistics provided by the Ministry of Education, the number of students using drugs has decreased from 2,432 in year 2012 to 409 in year 2021. This is a good development. However, the number of juveniles committed to the sale and the transport of drugs is growing very fast, from 91 cases to 174 cases. We may assume that adult drug dealers seduce juveniles to commit the crimes. In recent years, abuse of marijuana, cannabis, is growing very fast in Taiwan. Marijuana users advocate the criminalization of marijuana. However, the statistics shows that it becomes more difficult to prevent children and juveniles from using marijuana after it is legalized. We can see the phenomenon in Canada as well as in California and Colorado in the United States. Specific recommendations. Number one, according to the Narcotics Hazard Prevention Act in Taiwan, marijuana is listed in Category 2 of the illegal narcotics. It should remain so. It should not be legalized. Number two, law enforcement should make more efforts to prevent adults from seducing and forcing children and juveniles to use the sell drugs. Number three, we need to revise the Narcotics Hazard Prevention Act. Certain civil servants, such as physicians, nurses, social workers, school teachers, municipal civil people, and the police officers should have the legal obligation to report drug abuse of children and juveniles. Thank you for your listening. Thank you.
谢谢。那我们这个阶段呢，我们全部的名
Thank you. All the NGOs have finished their presentations.
finished. So we are closing these sections. So the time will leave to the chairman.
Thank you very, very much for all the information. We are almost drawn in all that information, so we need lunch. So enjoy your lunch, and I'll see you this afternoon. We see and looking forward, and then we will have questions, and a lot of questions. So enjoy your lunch and see you back in, what is it, 2 o'clock?
Yes, 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. Okay,
谢
enjoy.
谢。感谢各位参与上午的会议。我们在4楼的贵宾厅会为各位准备午餐的餐盒，请携带您的餐券，搭乘电梯或是手扶梯到4楼贵宾厅进行领取餐盒以及用餐。再提醒各位，我们现在呢会在这边开始进行主会场的清场和换场的作业，所以请各位携带您的随身物品以及归还口译设备。不要遗留任何的物品在本会场，谢谢。在这边提醒，我们中午的午餐餐盒在4楼的贵宾厅，请各位携带着您的餐券，搭乘电梯或手扶梯到4楼领取餐盒以及用餐。提醒各位，我们现在在主会场呢会进行清场跟换场，请您记得携带您的随身物品以及归还你的口译设备，不要遗留任何的物品在会场。我们下午的会议阶段呢，将在2点的时候继续进行。我们下午的会议将在2点继续开始。请各位记得，我们要在2点以前完成您的报到的手续。再请各位留意，谢谢。
国家报告的过程。